SVVR programming. So I installed
I was gonna say, we built the oh, let me just quickly change something. Yeah, you can start and I'll come up.
Is there a plug? Is there a plug here?
There's a power plug in this.
Sweet. What's up, people? I think we're ready to begin. Oh my goodness. Oh, there's some life over there. What's happening? How's everyone feeling tonight? Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Can you tell us stories?
Oh man, there's so many stories I will have and that will be told. But first, we're gonna get this underway. SVVR Meetup number 43. We are not getting any younger. All right. This is amazing. 43 of these things. All right. So first thing, Carl's gonna come up with some short things, and we're gonna hear from our first presentation from Avegant. So Carl.
All right. I just want to start things off with just thanking our partners as usual. Noedum, who's been awesome, NVIDIA, who's been keeping us deep in PCs. We're between demo systems right now, so we're counting on community demos, but luckily there's a lot of demos here tonight, so that's great. And Vive and our partners VR Core in China. VR Core is a group similar to SVVR in China, and we're actually sending 3 folks out there at the end of this month for a global VR hackathon, so hopefully we'll get a report on what's going on there soon. All right, but yeah, this week, this has been a kind of a crazy month. The real sad news was rest in peace AltSpace. So I've asked Bruce, it may be soon, he may be raw, but I've asked Bruce if he could do a little bit of kind of give us his thoughts and some Q&A about, you know, what went right, what went wrong, and that kind of thing. So, Bruce, what's up?
Let's go. Nice. Man. I guess it's a rite of passage that your startup fails in Silicon Valley, but I didn't expect it to be so personal or to hurt so much. So there's that. Yeah, kind of the rundown, if you're not familiar with what happened at AltSpace VR. We felt like we were doing pretty good. Things were rolling along swimmingly. We had lots of people, thousands of people, in fact, using the service every day. It's feeling really great. And like, all right. We had a large deal on the table that we put a lot of our energy into. I can't say more details, I guess, but there was a large deal on the table that had a plan A and a plan B as a part of that large deal. And there was some initiative taken to make sure we had a plan C from some of our other existing investors. Plan A fell through, plan B fell through, and we went to inquire about plan C. The commitments that were made were withdrawn. So AltSpace stopped in mid-keystroke, and the cynicism about Silicon Valley rose 500% within my mind. I think it's really frustrating when you have a place where everyone's passionate, everyone believes in what they're doing, everyone comes in every day to do hard work. This wasn't a startup where we just had coconut water and foosball tables. This is a startup. We had a little bit of coconut water. It's a little bit.
I saw one, yeah,
it's
a little bit.
slow in the fridge. I didn't drink it. But it was mostly, you know, most of the budget was spent on people in a variety of ways. Engineers, making infrastructure, making technology, making sure that what we were building was accessible across mobile, Android, 2D on mobile, 2D on PC and Mac, Vive, Rift, all of those things in between, Daydream, Gear VR. So we worked hard to make that a reality. We worked hard to really build some really core technologies that we felt were important if you wanted to eventually monetize around virtual events or monetize around having something going on in virtual reality at scale, which I think we were really making some strides there. And we were learning a lot. We've been shipping this product since May of 2015 is when it went open beta. And all that time we've been learning from users. And I think a really important thing about VR, about things in general, is that you design in a vacuum, you can only learn so much. Yep. But you really want to get your thing out there, find out what are the compelling use cases, and we had felt we were latched on to quite a few of them, yeah. Which we felt really strongly about. Our session time, the number of users we were bringing in, given the state of the industry, we were feeling really good about. And so that made it increasingly doubly frustrating to lose investor confidence at a time when we felt like we were hitting our stride. So that's kind of the long and short of it. You know, we just couldn't afford to pay people anymore. You know, I think it'd be harder to pill to swallow if we found that our user numbers were like dwindling away, or no one was using our product, no one found us compelling, no one found us interesting. I think it'd be easier to swallow, but that was not the case. And as you probably, if you saw or were paying attention to social media as we made the announcement, you know, Twitter and Facebook and a bunch of other places were abuzz. There's been a Discord created of the AltSpace community that have been brainstorming. People have been ripping as much as they can out of our product to port it over to VR chat. There's just been an outpouring of the community and just such great stuff that's been produced by our community to show how much AltSpace meant to them. That's been, I guess, vindicating and heartening to the team, but also really sad. So that's kind of the rundown. A lot of the team got pretty much people reaching out that same day to poach them because a lot of our fellow colleagues recognized the talent that was applied to build up what we built up, both from a technology standpoint and a community standpoint, something that's not easy to do. Yeah, so it's kind of in midair right now. The servers are kind of still up. Things are in limbo. We're working hard to maybe have something happen, but right now it's kind of just throwing Hail Marys and hoping something happens in the end zone. Right now it's ball still in the air for all of you that are excited about football season. Very good. Happy to take questions and answer whatever I can about what went down or address any speculation or whatever. Shannon, what's up, dude?
All right, so how much did the patent troll have to do with it, and how can we kill him?
I'm in favor of destroying this patent troll who's
yes.
in somewhere in Texas, but that had just about zero to do with what we were going on. That was a patent troll that had sued us before.
Okay.
Dropped their case once it was clear the judge was going to dismiss that case. Our lawyers looked at it and was like, "Go pound sand."
Yeah, it's not enforceable.
They don't have a case. So we were, they were essentially trying to extort money in true patent troll fashion. And we're like, good luck, bro. Yeah. So that was not really, although it's funny to see how this narrative has become like, AltSpace died because of a patent troll, Palmer assassinated him. But that is not, the Palmer, the troll was not the reason why. It was really just some unexpected withdrawal of commitment from finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were they looking for that they didn't see?
Your guess is as good as mine. Being here in the Silicon Valley for a while, I guess there's this mythos around Silicon Valley VCs and the VC community and investor community that's around. That everybody's like, they're 4 steps ahead, they're super on top of it, and my experience has been that's not 100% true. There's a lot of guys that are just like your stoner friends in college that are sitting around and like, what if we did this, bro? But it just so happened that all of them have millions of dollars in trust fund accounts, and they have a VC thing going on. And they read blogs and they listen to whatever the narrative of the day is, and so maybe some of it is that. I know that we've been in existence for a while. We weren't monetizing. We didn't feel it made sense to monetize when even if every person in AltSpace gave us money, that still would be kind of a drop in the bucket to say what we owed our investors or the operating costs of what we were doing. So it didn't really make sense. We were really building up to the standalone Android headsets, where we felt that was really an opportunity for VR to really grow significantly in a way that comparable to like what you see in like web and mobile now. But the numbers of active users in VR overall, I don't know. But I mean, it's kind of anyone's guess. You never know what these people are listening to, or who they're listening to, or what they're reading, or what they're believing in. I think it's kind of law speculation at that point. Yeah.
What do you guys plan on doing with the code base behind AltSpace VR? Is that going to be made open source, or do the people who invested own it now, or like what's going to happen? Like if we just want to set up our own servers and run it.
Sure. As far as the code base, right now we're just kind of working to do our best to see that it lives on in some way, shape, or form, and there's no conclusive answer to that right now. So it would be a terrible waste if all that productivity and all that work and energy that was put in by a very talented team were to just be pissed away and be lost forever. There's...
You can put it on a USB drive for me.
Yeah, awesome. See that, you're like, just drop this on the fucking map. But yeah, I think the overall sentiment of the executive team, lead engineers, everyone is like, we want this work to continue living in some way, and so we're kind of working to see, I don't know where it ends up happening. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was personally, using Altspace VR, and I'm a little disappointed that that's done. But what's next? What's next in the pipeline for you?
Yeah, for me personally, or?
For you personally, and for maybe next venture,
Yeah, I think overall in the team, I think everyone's just kind of trying to figure that out right now, me included. There's some opportunities on the table that I've been presented with that I'm kind of investigating and seeing like, oh, okay. I mean, I'd love to continue to be involved in virtual reality, virtual reality, education in virtual reality. Those are my personal interests, and some things that have kind of come along that are in that kind of category. So that's exciting, I guess. But yeah, so I think right now just kind of taking some time, reflect on what has happened, try to see what lessons I can pull away from this thing, and then at that point make a decision to what the next chapter is. So yeah.
So what was your burn rate? So if you put aside what you owed the investors, what would it take you per user to keep this going?
Oh my God. Ridiculous amount, probably. So we have about 35,000 active users a month, which I feel is pretty great for VR. But to have that offset, we probably have to have some kind of subscription thing that would probably have to be at least $5 or $10 a month or something like that, I would think. Because what we were doing at Altspace was not only creating infrastructure, but also creating content. And we had to do a lot of that ourselves because of what our strategy was around accessibility. So there are some platforms that are taking a different tack. They're like, hey, it's open to users. People can create whatever they want. It's all on the users. But you run into quality control issues, of course, and then some limitations into what type of platforms you can support. So being able to support Daydream, for example, just Daydream was a huge initiative that was months long. Not only doing the work to get Altspace to work there, but also getting through Google's approval process, right? That was a huge effort with lots of engineers and product folks on that effort. And that would be pretty much probably impossible at this point in time if we had users creating all our stuff. It'd be a very, very limited experience on mobile. So that's why we had as many people as we had, and we were doing as much as we were doing, because we were kind of doing both sides and taking baby steps to making those things open to users, getting to the point where a user would be able to create that stuff. We put it on them, but because it was early stages and because of where VR is as an industry, that's kind of what we were doing. So.
Bruce, was that lucky tweet voting thing that I voted yes for? Was that just him getting press?
It wasn't all press. Palmer was sincere about that. We talked, but not much more I can say about that from this point, I guess.
So still a possibility?
Like I said, there's lots of things floating in the air. So there's many paths that this can go down, and perhaps Palmer could help along one of them. But we'll see where that goes.
How much money were you looking for?
All of the money. All of it. All of it. Yeah, I think I'll just can disclose all that info. Those details probably would be wise to disclose that type of stuff. But yeah.
Just want to say, regardless of what happens, thanks for introducing us all to virtual high fives and blinking in VR. That was very, very good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you on behalf of the team as well. Whenever we have this outpouring and people communicate how much they love Altspace or what AltSpace meant to them, or what one of our team members meant. Means a lot to the AltSpace team. So on behalf of the team, I want to thank all of you for your support and your love along the way and your participation in this kind of grand adventure. So I may have taken enough time at this point. Feel free to find me later, ask me questions. That'll be great. But awesome.
Yep. Just how many other I see a few other AltSpacers here. We have 1, 2, 3. All right. These people may be looking for a job.
Yeah.
If you're
Very
hiring.
awesome people.
And AltSpace has very high standards, so.
True.
Good team.
Oh yeah, we got some good peeps. So people. All right. Nice. We're just going to presentations from now.
Yeah.
Or
So
is-
yeah, it's Ed.
Yeah, Edward Tong from
I
Avegant.
pronounced my last name correctly.
Oh snap!
That is so rare.
Oh, thank God, I try. I try not to mess names up. All right, let's give him a warm round of applause as he comes up.
You're a man of many firsts, Bruce.
Oh, I try.
Yeah.
It's like there's like 4 adapters here.
So
many.
that were daisy
It'll work.
chaining.
So many dongles. You got it? Does it work? Yes.
Should work.
Yes.
Please, 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 please. After I said it'll work now.
Take
There
it
we
to
go.
the limit. Nice.
Yes. Another dongle.
Word of 2016.
Cool. I think we're good. Hey guys, I'm Ed. I'm the founder and CTO of Avegant. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about enabling mixed reality experiences with light field technologies. So you guys probably know a little bit about what we've done in the past, so we're going to update you on some of the previous technologies as well as what we're doing these days, which has been pretty exciting. If you guys have paid any attention to what's going on in the whole AR, MR, light field space. So I think first, I think you guys are actually pretty well educated in the space, more than most audiences that I talk to. When we started this company about 5 years ago, one of the things that we were really saw what was happening is this trend of computing moving from, let's say, PCs and laptops to mobile, from mobile to wearable, right? This future of, the disappearing computer that Walt Mossberg talks about, this whole idea of ambient computing. So this trend is something that's happening really, really fast now. And I think when we first started this company, we didn't really know when it was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen, but we just didn't know when. And with the onset of these VR devices and then AR devices, about 2 years ago, we very quickly shifted toward building stuff toward these transparent displays. And I would say one of the differentiating factors about a lot of the research and technology that we build is we like to think about new types of experiences that we can build using new display technologies, but in particular, we like to focus on human physiology. So part of my background is not only in the MEM space, but I worked for about 10 years researching around the biomedical space. It's taking these new advanced electronic and micromechanical type technologies, and how do you make them more compatible with the human body? Like, we were working on stuff that we're literally doing things like neuromodulation, like implanting things into your brain, your spinal cord, reading those signals, and actually modulating those as well. But taking new technologies and figuring out how you interface them with the body is actually really important. And a lot of our early research in the display space was motivated by this. We're actually working with the military, the Defense Department, as well as the Department of Energy around new types of displays that were much higher performance than what they had access to, were much higher resolution, as well as very low eye fatigue. Talk about problems where you can wear a display not just for 10 to 30 minutes, but displays that you can wear on your eyes for 4 to 8 hours. And this is something still I think the industry struggles with today. So from the very get-go, we started looking at this problem. We said, we need to more closely mimic how we naturally see the world, right? We have no problem seeing the world. I could look out in the world all day, and there's no problems. But the second that I stare at a display panel for about 30 minutes or an hour, your eyes start to get really tired. There's still a lot of issues around that space. So what happens in the real world is we don't actually look at glowing displays. You guys aren't flat glowing panels and pixels. You guys are light that's reflected from other sources, reflecting to my eyes in a way, with certain properties. So one of the first things that we did very early on is we invented what we call retinal imaging display technology. Basically, we're taking very low-powered LED light, and we're actually sending it through a bunch of optics, and we're reflecting this light, we're modulating this light with a fully digital micromirror array. If you guys are familiar, we're actually using Pico DLP chips here. So using these micro mirrors, we're actually reflecting bits and pieces of light and reflecting them directly onto your retina, where once the light hits your eye, that's the first time the image is actually created, right? And what we found was that very early on, we found that some of the benefits was very, very high resolution, okay? Because we don't have the same pixel structure that you find in an LCD and OLED panel, we didn't have the same pixelation issues. So to give you an example, a typical OLED panel has a bunch of pixels, and then inside a pixel, you have subpixels of color, RGB color. Sometimes you have kind of worse structures like pentile and things like that. But you have these RGB subpixels, and the amount of area or the fill factor of any individual color on an OLED panel is about like 10%, right? So if we look at the color white, for example, that means 10% of each color, right? So 70% of that pixel is just black. So when I put that in a VR headset, which you guys are probably more familiar with, and you magnify it, what happens? Well, you're actually magnifying not the pixels, but the gaps between the pixels. So you end up seeing screen door effects and pixelation and all that stuff. So what you have to do in order to fix the fill factor problem is you have to have smaller gaps, right? So if I add more pixels, the gaps get smaller. So I'm kind of magnifying smaller gaps now, and that kind of alleviates that problem. But it's kind of a brute force way, right? Ideally, there's a better way to do that. So our technologies, our micro mirrors are actually 90% fill factor for every single color, about 9 times the fill factor for every single color compared to some of the technologies you see today. It's also extremely fast, right? So these technologies we use today, very, very low latency. You know, a lot of the demos that we're running, some of the technologies we've seen are running up to like 1,000 frames a second, right, or even faster, depending on how much color fidelity that you're looking for. No persistence issues, obviously. It's not like a material we're turning on and on. We're literally flipping these mirrors between 10 and 50 kilohertz speeds. So it's really quite incredible how fast these things can run. And we've designed a bunch of different designs with these type of experiences. So the one product that you guys are probably most familiar with in the past that we've done is a product that we call the Glyph. The Glyph, effectively, you think about it like a very high quality mobile theater, right? I put this thing on, it's like a movie theater screen in front of me. Not fully immersive, but it was designed for mobile media on-the-go experiences. And one of the things that we found was, well, I think we got some really great feedback in the market. You know, we won the official CES award 2 different years. We were selected Oprah's favorite thing at the end of last year. And our users were really using it for, probably about 70% of our users were using it for on-the-go media, right? They would get on a plane, put this thing on, plug it into your phone, and have kind of movie theater and Netflix or whatever they want to do, or play games on their phone. And the other 30%, interestingly enough, were using it for drones. They wanted to have very, very bright, very high resolution, very low latency digital displays. So a bunch of our users are actually flying drones with it. They're taking stuff like the DJI Phantoms and Inspires, plugging them right into the controller, and they could see, from miles away, they could have a crystal clear image. And we even did stuff with DJI where we integrated head tracking. So you can actually turn the device, and the camera would pan with your head as if you're a bird in the sky. Super cool stuff. Yeah. But some of the feedback that we got from our users were, incredible display quality, right? Stunning displays, no pixelation, no screen effects, things like that. And moving forward, one of the coolest things that I think is very valuable to us and our partners is the fact that we actually build stuff, right? We actually have mass manufacturing capabilities, right? There's a lot of startups out there who are building cool display technologies, but there's a significant difference for small or large companies to go from, let's say, prototypes to actually mass manufactured stuff. Crazy difficult, right? So these are actually images from our manufacturing lines up in China, where we have, our advanced optics assemblies and clean rooms that we do with our contract manufacturers. We've got over 100 suppliers that we audit. I mean, it's like really serious manufacturing challenges here, as well as the mechanical assembly that we see on the right side. Well, about 2 years ago, we saw kind of what was happening in the VR space, and we saw that AR and MR were coming much faster than we originally anticipated. We started focusing a lot of our research efforts on just transparent displays. One of the things that we noticed was it's actually not hard to build a transparent display, right? People have been building transparent stuff for a long time, but we found it's very difficult to build really compelling experiences. And a lot of that comes down to how our eyes actually see. And this is where we're going to start explaining about why light field really matters. So when we started building our early transparent displays, probably about 2 years ago, we saw experiences that looked a lot like this, right? Where, okay, I can put an object out in space, and far away it looks fine, But the second that I wanted to have this object up close, or I wanted to manipulate it, or I wanted to overlay a virtual object on top of a real object, then you had this problem, right? You started seeing experiences like this. You put your hand out, you want to put an object in the palm of your hand. What you find is that the object's focus doesn't match the focus of your hand, right? Which means I can either look at the object and it's clear and the hand's out of focus, or vice versa, right? I think up to this date, and even today in the VR space, the only 3D cues we're putting in is the convergence angle, right? These displays actually can't change the focus of where the images are being put. And this causes two major problems. Number one, it causes really unrealistic experiences and really unrealistic overlay, especially up close. And the second thing is it also causes sickness in AR. It's a different kind of sickness that I think the VR guys are used to. In VR, we look at things like motion sickness is a big problem. In AR, when you have discomfort because of convergence disparity mismatch, you cause headaches, you cause eye strain, you can even cause nausea too. It's a different kind of sickness. And there's actually some pretty interesting science behind this, right? If you really want to start diving into the vision science, this is stuff that's actually pretty well understood for the last few decades now, is you start looking at things like depth cues. How do we actually see depth, right? And you notice that if you kind of break the world into 3 different zones, up close and far away, there's actually a bunch of different depth cues that we see. And just to explain or point out a couple of these things that probably we're very familiar with, is things like, let's say, relative size. If an object is really big, it's probably closer to you, and as it moves farther away, it probably gets smaller, right? Likewise, we have things like motion parallax, where if I'm moving my body like left and right, objects that are close to me, like this microphone, are moving a lot in my vision, like significantly in my vision, and objects that are farther away don't really move a lot in my vision, right? And so all of these depth cues have to match, right? If you get errors in these depth cues, then your brain really starts having a problem. All these depth cues you see right now, these are all visual depth cues, right? You can do this in like a graphics engine like Unity. Now, what I want to talk about is what you see down there in the bottom corner, accommodation and convergence. What you find is that when you get closer, right, when you're within about, let's say, 10 meters of distance, accommodation and convergence becomes really important. And it's really important for all of these things to match each other, and stuff starts not matching, you start having problems. This space is really critical in our field, right? Both VR as well as AR, more in AR, and I'll talk about that in a second. That the focus or accommodation matches the convergence or the stereoscopic 3D of your eyes. Now, displays today don't do this, right? All the displays today they don't solve that problem.
Right.
So the next question we ask is, well, what happens if it's wrong, right? How far wrong can it be, and what effects do we get from that, right? So there's some interesting research actually coming out of Berkeley these days around how do we tolerate error or focus error to other depth cues, right? And so what we look at first is, I look at the convergence distance, which is in the bottom, and the focus distance on the side axis over there. And we draw a line from the bottom corner to the other corner. And that's the real world. What that means is the real world is always correct. It is our ground truth, right? There's no error in the real world. So when I'm looking at you, for example, you're, let's say, 4 meters from me. So my eyes are converged at 4 meters, but my eyes are also individually focused at 4 meters. There's this one-to-one relationship between convergence and focus for our eyes. And this is something we develop as a child when we get our stereoscopic vision. This is also the reason why all our products say, do not show this to kids under 12 or 13 years old. This is why, because you're going to screw with kids and how they develop their vision here. And so this is what the real world is like, and that's great. Now, how far can we deviate? How far wrong can the focus be from the real world or from the convergence distance and still be okay for us? And that's what we call the the comfort zone. That's that green area you see up here. So basically what that means is I can deviate in focus and convergence distance and still be okay as long as I don't deviate too much. But what you find is that you notice that the green box is really big when you go larger than a meter. And when you get smaller than or less than a meter, the area for the tolerance for error is really, really small.
Yeah.
So most of the VR experiences and AR experiences that we have today are all playing in that green area, the green box. You notice that most of the VR content you see, you're generally not getting within about a meter, right? And as a developer, you know, like, don't do these things to your users. This is one of those things that you probably should not be doing to your users. So all the experiences you have are generally a little farther away, right? Now, in VR, that's fine. You can control that environment. I can control the experience the user has, and I can make the experience such that users try to avoid that area as much as possible. Now, in mixed reality and transparent displays, you can't really do that. The person sees the real world. You can't prevent them from like walking around or like getting too close to objects. And that becomes a pretty big problem. So getting things right in that green area, that red area is really critical. So what you find is anything less than roughly a meter, meter and a half to a meter, it is really critical that the focus is correct. Now, how do we do this? How do we fix the focus, right? So the solution that we came up with is we created what's called a multifocal solution, okay? And our light field displays actually work by simultaneously sending your eyes multiple focal points. And that is a pretty good approximation of how the real world works, right? Where I may be focused on a certain distance, but no matter where I'm looking, I'm still getting information from things in front and things behind, right? So my eyes are getting information from all these different distances all at the same time, and my eyes can very naturally change focus, right? Just where they want to. And that's how the real world works, and we're very closely mimicking what that feels like, where we're actually displaying multiple focal points all at the same time. And one of the nice things about it is things feel very realistic. We actually don't need eye tracking. And another reason why this is so important is what we're finding in our research now, it's not just what is in focus that matters. What's out of focus is also very important. What's out of focus needs to be out of focus in the right ways, right? So there's a lot of interesting stuff being done in things like single variable plane focus. And that's actually pretty difficult. I mean, it's a good step in the right direction, but it's ultimately not the right solution, right? So you really want to get to simultaneous multifocal point type solutions, and maybe even farther down the road, like holographic displays and stuff. And when you get it right, you have experiences that look a lot more like this, right? You saw the experience before that looked wrong. Here, I can put my hand up. The object looks correct in my hand. It's in the same focal plane as my hand. And I can have objects that are farther away that are different distances, and it has its own focus, right? So I can focus up close. The object far away looks out of focus. And vice versa. If I look farther away, the object close to me looks out of focus. And there's no limit to like how many objects you want to put. And so in our demos, you can see that there's parts in our demos where we have dozens of objects from like inches away all the way out to infinity all at the same time. And that's actually really important, really great for the experience. And when you can deliver these type of experiences, you can really enable the type of experiences and applications that people really want to have. One that I think about a lot is I want the ability to have this face-to-face conversation with a virtual person. I travel a lot, it'd be great to see my daughter when I'm on the road, and interact with things with my hands, look at objects together right in front of us. And you can't do that today without light field displays. It also is going to change the way we think about user interface. If you guys have tried stuff like HoloLens is a good example. Great product, but fundamentally there's a limitation because of the fixed focus, right? They can't do things, they can't show things up close. That includes things like user interfaces. So if you guys have tried HoloLens, you notice that the entire user interface is like, pin an application to the wall, and then move a cursor with your head and click on it over here. It's not because they want to have that kind of lackluster user interface. It's because they can't do anything better because of the display limitation. And then you can have stuff like this, right? Where I can actually overlay information right in front of me onto something like my hands. And because it's up close, I can actually interface with it with my other hand. This is all becoming very possible now that we have these light field technologies. And you can start to actually interact with the scenes, right? I can actually touch things, I can swipe things, I can interact with tools and objects. I can have virtual objects that overlay into the real world. And this is now all possible because we have these light field technologies. So it really becomes truly an enabling technology for pretty much any experience that you're thinking about, both enterprise and consumer. This is why there's a lot of excitement around the space. One of the things that I want to touch upon is the light field technology itself. A couple of attributes I want to point out. It is full resolution. There's no degradation in resolution. It's full color. It's full frame rate. The technology itself is actually very mature. Because we have a background in manufacturing and supply chain, we actually are able to use those suppliers and contract manufacturers to actually build out these technologies. So they're actually easily scalable, which is fantastic. And the rendering power is not significantly increased. And what's actually pretty interesting about that is you think about what an engine like Unity is doing today, and we've developed plugins for Unity to allow all Unity content to be compatible with light field. Unity is this full 3D content, right? A full 3D environment. So Unity knows where all the objects are. It knows kind of the distance of the object from the cameras, from where you are. And so it actually knows where all the depth and focal information is, right? It knows that. It's already calculating that. But displays today obviously can't use that information, so it just throws it away, right? So we've developed a Unity plugin that allows Unity to actually take that depth information now and encode it and send it to our headsets, where we decode it and actually display the images and pixels with the right distances and focal points. That's actually pretty important. So the compute power actually required is quite low, such that not only are we running on PCs, we're also running on things like Qualcomm Snapdragon chipsets. So think about like these standard mobile chipsets are also going to be able to support this stuff as well. So that becomes really exciting. So two last things I want to end my little talk about is, one is I want to show you an example, a video of my daughter, who's 4 years old in this video. This works. The computer's thinking right now. It's a little video of her in one of our prototype headsets, actually walking around in one of our demo rooms. And what she's doing here, she's only 4 years old, right? And what she's doing here is she's actually trying to grab fish. The room is full of fish and sea turtles and sharks, and the objects feel so realistic to her that she can't help but to reach out and actually grab it. And this is a really common thing. Almost every single demo that we do for people are always reaching out and grabbing things. It's really funny. And it's because when the focus is correct, finally all your depth cues are now correct, and objects just seem so much more realistic. We also have some demos where we're integrating things like hand tracking, and we've had some awesome demos where, we've got some guy who's sitting in a chair, he puts his thing on, he puts his hand out, and suddenly a syringe appears from out of the thin air and comes down and literally gives him an injection in the middle of the hand, and the guy like jumps out of the seat. And he's like, I felt that, and it's really wild when you can do stuff like that, right? Like matching the focus of your hand. So at the end of the day, light field truly is required for experiences that users demand. And this is why this technology is getting so much excitement in the space right now. Of course, we've all heard of companies like Magic Leap raising a ton of money in the space. And this is why, because the experiences that you can deliver not only are amazing, it can really start to enable the experiences that people are talking about. When people are saying that AR is going to replace smartphones and replace computers, yeah, that's all great, but that's not going to happen unless you have light field technology, right? And that's part of what people are really starting to understand now. And the last thing I want to kind of leave a note on is the timeline of where things are today. And one of the things that I think we're really excited about is now that we have light field technologies, we're finally at a point where we can have real products that can do real things for real people and solve real problems. And that, unfortunately, is that device over there on the left, right? Which is great. And what that means is we've got a device now that, yes, these devices initially are going to be probably too bulky, probably too expensive, maybe not the right form factors. I'm talking about like the next 12 months, right? But we're going to have devices that truly have enough utility to solve real problems for a lot of people, right? And this is kind of why I think we're going to see a lot of enterprise use case first, probably in the next few years before we really start to see consumer products. But I will say that consumer products are coming a lot faster than I think what most people think. I think I'm seeing stuff like maybe around 2020, maybe even late 2019, we're going to start seeing consumer products in the market by real consumer companies. That's really exciting. But even though we're there today, I think that's really awesome. It's still slightly early days, but we're going to see some real products out in the market very quickly, and that's really great. But I think beyond light fields, there's still a lot of technologies that need to be developed, and that's a lot of the stuff that we're working on today. Our light field technologies are moving to production, which means the research groups that we lead are doing new, kind of solving new problems. And what's really exciting is that we may be there today, but we see a really clear path to get to there. And that's super exciting for us internally to see where things are going. All right, thanks a lot.
We're a little behind on time, so just one question, and then you have to find them
Sorry,
after.
I ran way over.
I don't see how you can do it without eye tracking. How do you possibly deal with
we don't need to know where your eyes are looking, right? The content is always put in the right place. So for example, let's take a simple example. If I had two objects, one object here and one object here, the game engine or the Unity graphics engine knows where these objects are. It knows the vergence needs to be set for something here, and it knows the focus needs to be here as well. Same thing for the other object. And we're displaying both of these to your eyes at the same time. Just like how the real world works, right? So I'm looking at you, I'm converging you, I'm focused at you. The world doesn't know where I'm looking, but behind you, there's someone sitting behind you, and I can very easily move my eyes to that point, and light from you is still coming exactly the same way to me. I'm shifting my eyes to somewhere else, but I'm still receiving that same data.
Okay.
If that makes sense. I can talk more about it.
Physics, baby.
It is. It hurts.
Awesome. Thank you, Edward. Woo. Sweet. Next up, Adam Draper from Boost. Come on up. He's one of the investors that do know what they're talking about. So there we go. Come on up. Give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Hey.
How's it going? How's it? There,
There you go.
how's it going? My name's Adam Draper. I'm a VC, or as Bruce put it, a douchebag, blowhard, money-grubbing person with a trust fund.
Hey.
And the
Some.
yeah, it's some. The so my and by the way, Bruce is like the greatest ambassador to virtual reality in general. This thing's just I don't know how to. There, okay, I'm good now. Bruce, I saw him in Boston. I see him in the most random places, like just building the VR community and Allspace VR. Like they took on an incredibly difficult task, which was paving the way for the consumer while also building out all the technology. And like, I don't think I really realized like how big of an impact it was gonna have until I was at this room and I was feeling the vibe. And I completely get how like the consumer, you all loved Altspace. And like, I first off, give a round of applause to all the Altspace people in here. Because I mean, they were the first. Like they were the trailblazers. It's always hardest when you're actually trying to convince the world that VR is a thing and also build the technology at the same time. My VR experience. Here, I'll give you the like quick, and then I'll try to get to questions so that I don't run over like Avegant, which is great. I don't know, I learned a lot about light field technology, and it was like math. I wasn't from the beginning, I would say. Like, first off, Verbal was 30 years ago or something, and like I wasn't alive. But about 3.5 years ago, I tried on a DK1, and then I also tried on a Samsung Gear. And I tried on the Samsung Gear, and I watched Transformers on the moon, and it was awesome. And I turned to my partners and I said, "Yeah, this is a thing." And so ever since that moment, actually, we have been supporting the virtual reality ecosystem however we can. What I do at BoostVC. So first off, BoostVC. I founded BoostVC about 5 years ago, but before you guys charged me with pitchforks. I started BoostVC about 5 years ago. The first vertical so we're an accelerator. We provide housing, office space, and we invest in startups, very early stage startups. And the first vertical that we went after was actually Bitcoin. I was an early investor in Coinbase. I had a background in that space. And we sort of became ambassadors for that space. We've backed about 65 companies in the Bitcoin and blockchain space. And what we realize that we do is we build communities around emerging technology. We take a platform, like virtual reality, for instance, and we launch tons of software developers at it, hoping that we can build out the community and hoping that these people add value, who turn into companies, who are companies. Normally it's two people and a dog, not like companies that actually, big companies. And so about 3 years in, 2.5 years, 3 years in, we were looking around and we were saying, hey, it doesn't matter what technology we focus on. We could really add value to any technology that needed a new community. And so that's when we actually added virtual reality. That's when I tried on the headset and we were looking around for new technologies.
And I, since then, we've backed about 60 virtual reality startups, and a lot of them are doing relatively well. I mean, it's a really interesting time. So I actually recently tweeted at Adam Draper, just in case you guys want to follow me. I need 30 more followers to get to 8,000. But I recently tweeted about how we're at the absolute bottom. So in virtual reality sentiment, I'm sure you guys are all feeling it, like in the vibes. And it's not only investment. So the problem with technology, and that we've been able to watch this from the eyes of Bitcoin actually, where people get really excited about a technology and they sort of overvalue it at the beginning, and they invest a lot of money, like venture capital money. And honestly, Oculus's purchase about 3 years ago, was sort of a false start to the industry. And the reason was that there was $2 billion that went into this thing, and then it was a signal to all the investors that, hey, people are willing to pay. But technically, the technology wasn't ready yet. And it was people like AltSpace, people like Oculus, who built it over the last 3 years into what it is, where you can actually spend a significant amount of time. I've spent a significant amount of time killing robots and space pirates. You can spend a lot of time in this technology. But the problem is when you actually release a new technology is that the numbers aren't good. Like, never. And for some reason, that always is surprising to investors. For some reason, that concept of like, wait a second, it's not mobile? Like, you can't reach like 6 billion people or whatever immediately? No, we're selling like one-off headsets, like, and last year 6.3 million of these headsets were sold, and which I think is incredible. Like the fact that anyone, 6.3 million people in the first year, people were just like, the management of expectation is sort of wrong on technologies and industries. And right now, I'm doubling down on VR. So actually, our newest tribe is about 75 to 80% virtual reality. And it's because of this. Like, I'm looking at the market and just saying, like, these are the most talented people I've ever met. Like, anyone who's building in virtual reality is, like, crazy impressive. And so we're doubling down on that industry just to launch more ideas, more things, and see what VR is better for than the real world as a whole. And so I am douchebag VC person in general. That's my day job. But I would be remiss to say that there are great venture capitalists in the world who do continue to support companies, and it is a horrible thing that has happened because the trailblazers were not supported. But I thought it was a really interesting dichotomy because you got to hear Bruce, who by the way, like, best community builder in VR ever. Well, plus Carl's right here too, so I should probably give him some props. But and then you got. And then you got to learn math, and then you got to see me talk about venture capital. Like, this is like the range right now of like venture capital. So I'm gonna stop there. I have no idea what you guys are thinking. So I would love to hear if you guys have any questions. By the way, my favorite intern ever is in the audience. His name's Koi. He's built an awesome game for the Samsung Gear VR.
Yeah.
And it's epic. Okay, so. Do you guys have any questions? Who wants to throw punches? Okay.
No punches. Thanks
Great.
for supporting the community by putting 65 more companies out there.
Of course.
What are you looking for in VR companies now?
So I think it's really interesting because okay. So I truly believe primitive. That literally the reason I love it is that it couldn't have existed before VR. Like. It visualizes code, and it allows you to walk through the code base, and they're selling you know, they're door to door. Like they're knocking on doors and going, hey, people who might have heard of virtual reality, I would love to show you my thing. And the technology is getting there, and I think businesses like I don't know. I was arguing with my dad. I don't know if you guys do that, but he was saying, I was saying like the computer, you know, it was adopted because of the enterprise. Like I assumed. I wasn't around, so my argument was actually not as strong. But he was arguing against that. I was saying like the Excel spreadsheet, that was the reason that the computer was adopted and like made its way into the homes because the businesses bought it and then it established a habit. Like these people at the office were actually using a computer. They were like suddenly like, wait a second, this thing actually adds value to my life? Well, maybe I should get one at home. And then they get one at home and they waste all their time playing games. And like, that's the adoption cycle. Like, we're gonna go through that exact same thing. It's not gonna be an Excel spreadsheet, we're not gonna be plugging in data. It's gonna be something else that adds value, that saves people time. I was, I will go click. High five. I was talking to my team the other day, and I was talking about how one of the reasons I'm so excited about virtual reality is that if you look at a 24-hour day as an adoption of technology, like right now, you spend what 2 hours on your phone, something like that. You spend an hour in your car, and then you spend like 8 hours on your laptop because that's what you're supposed to do in an email thing. What I was picturing what that looks like in 10 years. And I was picturing the adoption cycle that has to happen in order for it to change. And like, if you think of it that way, like VR has to work. Like I'm not gonna be staring at my freaking screen for 8 hours a day for like 10 years. Like I'm just telling you guys that right now. But I'm gonna be on the moon doing the Minority Report thing, okay? And I'm gonna enjoy it. And I actually think it's really funny because I don't mean to bring up Glaive Avegant, which is an awesome technology. I actually think that AR is a distraction right now. Because people are loving ARKit, all these investors are actually getting distracted with something that is still in the toy phase. And I'm contrarian, and I'm sure there's some people here who want to punch me in the face for that. So I got like one side going to punch me in the face for that. But so it's a really interesting thing that's happening where I think we're at the absolute, I said nadir, which means the bottom. And I think that we're about to explode. Like the VR community is about to explode. It's about to be I don't know if you guys have been like listening to the ICO token market, which is like absurd. But like for Bitcoin 2 years ago, silence. Like there was nothing. It was depressing. And I was a little bored, quite honestly. And we're at that point. That's why I'm doubling down, is because this is the time when hard work goes into it. This is the time when like people grind it out and actually build the infrastructure that people can actually like do things on. Okay, you. Click.
I forgot.
Oh, I'm sorry. His hand was up for like 2 minutes. I'm sorry. Does anyone else have a question?
What was the name of the guys you said were going door to door selling the Primitive.
Okay. Yeah. He's really talented.
Yeah, it's crazy cool.
Is that John? He's presented here at SVVR.
Oh, great. John Voorhees.
Yeah, Voorhees.
Is his name.
Yeah.
In the back.
So what's your pitch? How many points do you take for what do they get?
So we're an accelerator. The reason you join us is to join the community. We invest average check size. So we go down, we go up. It's $50,000 for 7% of a company. And we really just focus, like honestly, over the last 5 years, like we've established what we're good at. And it's just focusing on a network. Like in the end, that's why you join BoostVC, is to hook up to the founders, is to hook up to Silicon Valley, is to meet investors and mentors. And like, because we join these industries so early, like I know Carl, I know Bruce. Like Bruce, I've seen it, like we say, hey, and he's like the hype man, so he's like, but like we met. Like I met all these people because I've been around the industry for so long. And that's why you joined us, because we've just been there through the ups, through the downs, and we try to help support however we can, and we continue to do that. So that's what we do. Cool. I have one more question if you guys have questions.
You should tell them about the facility in San Mateo.
Oh yeah, it's pretty dope.
It is pretty dope.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. So we provide housing, which is unique to any accelerator. No one provides housing because that would be dumb. And we only do it because like it was baked into the system from the beginning.
Yeah.
And we have 2 floors of a hotel building that we lease, and it's incredibly valuable though. The reason we didn't drop it was because it's incredibly valuable to have all the companies like in dorm room setting, getting to know each other and like liking each other. That's the most important thing. Is like people wanting to support each other, and so that trust is built. We also have the facilities of our office, which we just lock them in a basement for 3 straight months, and take away all distractions. And like at the end of it, they've made progress. Who knew that's how that worked? But it really is. I mean, it's really. I'm playing it down. It's really great. Like we've been doing it for a really long time. We are very strong in VR. We are very strong in blockchain. Our concept is making science fiction a reality. As an overarching statement, our communities in VR and blockchain are way stronger than others, but I'm constantly looking for anything that gets me closer to an Iron Man suit. Yeah, so I want to thank Carl. I want to thank all of you for listening to this. SVVR, by the way, is like a fantastic program. We've been, I don't think I've actually spoken at any other. I just attended
we
a lot.
We did an SVVR at Boost.
Like, we did at Boost. So I did.
3 years ago. Yeah.
And it's just a great program that's evolved a lot and changed a lot, and they're really becoming sort of a. Basically, okay, this is what I'm saying. If you are a startup in the VR ecosystem, last 2 more years. Figure it out. Figure out how to last 2 more years. Promise. Like this is my last 2 more years, you will be golden. But in order to do that, you have to figure out who your customer is, you have to figure out where the money's coming from, you have to figure out all that stuff. And so basically I'm asking you to build a company like the normal way. But yeah, and honestly, I encourage people to try to build it without venture capital money most of the time. Like if you don't need us, don't. Like I think if you read TechCrunch every day, you're like, hey, I need to raise venture capital money, and that's the goal. And it is not the goal. The goal, our money, what I'm realizing, I personally had a really good day today where I did invest in Coinbase and I did invest in another one that did really well today specifically. But it was 5 years. It's not an overnight thing. It takes forever to get to that point, and you really need to be resilient. Coinbase did not have it easy, and the other one didn't have it easy. None of them have it easy. Nothing was born, no success was born overnight. And so this, right now in the VR ecosystem, this is the trial and tribulations of VR. This is the time frame that everyone's gonna talk about, because this is when the winners are born. This is when the stars are created. And we're really excited to try to find those, few. It's gonna be great. And I hope you're all around and enthusiastic about the VR ecosystem in the next 5 years, 10 years. I actually think at some point we're we don't talk about the internet. We're not going to be talking about VR. It's just going to be a thing that happens. We assume you're using VR, otherwise you're an idiot. So thank you. My name is Adam Draper. Work for BoostVC. I really want to thank Carl, and we really want to thank Bruce. So. We're at the point when winners are born, so, do it. Do things. Build stuff. I'm out.
All right. Yes.
What's the plug in while you look at it?
And also, vouch for Adam. BoostVC is a cool ass fucking place. And a lot of cool things have come out of that. Janus, Pixel Rift. Binary, so many great companies found a home at the start, and some really good advice and resources at Boost. So, yes, that's fantastic. And now Carl
Give me
is
1 second. Now I'm gonna fit it.
Oh no, he's working with the dongles. Do we have any other questions about random VR things? Anything? Shoot. Do it. No curiosity in the room. None.
Give us a chance to.
Just trying to absorb this. Just absorbing everything. Very good. Ready?
What's your favorite experience other than Allspace?
Oh my God, Star Trek Bridge Crew, probably. Good God. So, I think someone put it best when it's like, so if you're familiar with like League of Legends, for example, imagine if there was a show on TV for 25 years where there was a carry and a jungler and like all those positions from League of Legends, and then League of Legends came out. That's how Star Trek Bridge Crew. It's like everyone has been training for this video game for the last 3 decades. So when you get in, you're like, Helm? Yes, I am Helm. Captain. I'm setting the course vector. And it's like, who are you? Aren't you a random troll? Not today. I'm saying, no. Like, it's ridiculous. So that's been a great experience. And lovely. So there, Carl.
Awesome.
Take it away.
All right. So last month we announced our intention to open up to co-working. And so this month we're so you know, there was a lot of little details to work out on that, but we're actually ready. We're literally starting on Monday. So tonight we're opening, the space will be open tonight, so if you haven't seen upstairs, you're welcome to go upstairs and check out the co-working area. It's a little more private than this, and yeah, our co-working, we have an introductory rate, so floating desk will be 200 and dedicated desk 500 for the first month, and then we're going to go to our slightly higher rates. So yeah, if you're looking for a place to co-work, take a look up there, check out our co-working, or just check it out anyway because it's cool. And yeah, you have a question?
Yes, you said 500, and then it goes up after that.
Yeah,
so it's only for 1 month that'll be 500, or if you get it in the first month.
Yeah, if you get it in the first, yeah,
it'll be
you'll
500 for like a
the
year.
First year, yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, so feel free to check out upstairs. There's a room for about a dozen folks up there, and there's also a little demo room, which is right now our PSVR room. And then, yeah, that's it. So we'll open up to community announcements. Whoops, wrong one. Not quite demo time yet. All right, so community announcements.
Nice
and we're going to
animation.
start with Vasant. Sure. Right? So Vasant is going to talk about our next class, which is coming up very soon.
Hey everyone.
Also wearing the 2016. I'm sorry, I just have to point out that there are about a dozen of the. We've made like 5 different versions of our shirts, but for some reason everyone is wearing this one today.
Great. I love
We're all living in 2016.
I love it. All right. So hey everyone. Vasant here from BoostVR, and so we're working with SVVR to put on a class next Tuesday, August 15th. And it's 2 hours, about the same time. It's like 8 o'clock now, right? Yeah, so 7 to 9, and we're just basically going over design practices for VR. So we'll have like a short lecture in the first 30 or so minutes, then you get to try VR experiences, then we're just gonna break that down, explain kind of what were kind of design decisions that were made, and then just kind of do some rapid prototyping to get you on your feet to actually building a short VR experience for yourself. So all within 2 hours. We have it on Eventbrite, so you can go to the SVVR website, check it out.
Please contact me or see Boris, and watch this space because, well, I'm not supposed to say what sort of organization we might be forming, but just keep an eye on Accenture as we do plan on hiring for various other positions in the VR space in the next few months. Thank you.
All right, Dave.
Thank you. So, my name is Dante Newman, and I'm the Director of HR at Avegant, and I just wanted to make a quick announcement as well. Thank you. Just to let people know that we are hiring, and we have a number of positions open for both hardware and software employees. We're scaling the organization. We have a lot of great and exciting things going on, so I just wanted to encourage those of you who are looking to please go to our website at avegant.com. You can check out our careers page, and we have a lot of openings and even more coming down the pipeline as we continue to grow. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be here for a little while. Again, my name is Dante Nuno. You can also find me online or on LinkedIn. And you can, if you have anything that you want to discuss tonight, you can find me here for about the next 30 minutes as well. Thank you.
All right.